Joining us now to talk about the Saints from The Athletic, Nola. Follow him on Twitter at Larry Holder. Is Larry Holder of The Athletic. Larry, always a pleasure. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Ken. How are you, buddy?
Doing fine. Everything's fine here, and good to have you with us. And, of course, we're getting closer and closer. I don't know that people realize how close it is because of all the distractions going on and the differences in life right now. I'm not sure people realize, look, Tulane's set to start on September 12th, the Saints on September 13th. That's less than 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's funny just running into friends of mine, and they're like, wow, it's partially because you've had no preseason games, so there's been no real build-up, and all of a sudden it's basically like final cuts as far as at the end of training camp come Saturday. And so it's really kind of just shock to the system that this is going down. And so, but yeah, it is pretty wild that all of a sudden we're wondering, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? Are there going to be any delays and this, that, and the other? And the NFL is full speed ahead, and Tulane, one day earlier, they'll be playing at South Alabama. So look, yeah, it's coming, and you and me are going to be wild and busy before we even really realize it.
No question about it. And as far as the Saints today are concerned, first, I guess it's good to see Gail Benson back out at practice, obviously, recovered from her bout with COVID-19.
Absolutely. And look, I thought it was we kind of knew that she was kind of well on her way when she was on the Zoom call to congratulate Brandon Ingram for winning the NBA's Most Improved Player Award. But certainly, yeah, it's the testing, I could tell you, has been very, very rigid. I mean, it happens. I could just tell you when I was going to practices, I think I was tested 7 times, 7 days in a row. And so, look, it is regular testing, but, Gail Benson, she's a very a busy lady, and it's just good that she was able to get the care she needed and overcome this virus that has really made a whirlwind of the way we live life, and of course the way we consume, and we'll be watching sports when it comes up.
Now to the meat of the issue, Alvin Kamara practicing today, and you watch this unfold. This is an act we've seen before, and I don't mean that to make light of it at all, but we are constantly manipulated, we being the media, by the outside entities. Number one, you've got agents and their clients, and then you've got the franchises as well. Kamara says it's not going to be a distraction in the offseason. He shows up, he's practicing, then all of a sudden he disappears. And then all of a sudden it's planted out there that it's a possibility that the Saints would trade him. Then all of a sudden, as if like magic, he's back practicing today. So we've seen this kind of posturing. We've seen this kind of thing transpire frequently in the jobs that we do over an extended period of time. That in itself is no surprise. I guess now it becomes a matter of, do they get a deal done before September the 13th? And as I wrote today, and what I feel is Kamara's going to want an agreement before the season starts. And as far as an agreement happening, it's kind of like the center of a hurricane cone, right? You got McCaffrey on one end and you got Mixon on the other end. So Kamara should end up in the middle of that, right?
That's certainly the way I would have looked at it. And look, I don't even think we needed to see Mixon. I mean, once the Derrick Henry deal came in at $12.5 million a year per maxing out per average, that seemed like it would be the floor for someone like Kamara, just because Kamara is a more diverse player. He's overall been more productive than Derrick Henry. But I think part of it was that last year he was not the same guy. And so, you throw in all kinds of other variables where the Saints really have not spent big money on a free agent type of deal. I'm not saying the free agent, but like retaining a player at running back since Deuce McAllister. They had to pay Reggie Bush. They were forced to pay that. And so they, like, when they retained Mark Ingram, it wasn't big time money. And look, this is big time money for a running back. And so, I think there was some hesitation there. And I do think, though, look, we've seen the back and forth go many, many times. But I do think that the timing of this is surprising because I'm assuming, say, Alvin Kamara figured a deal would get done. And then, just spidey sense here that there was a halt in where they were going. They're planting their, drawing the line in the sand, and said Alvin said, all right, look, I'm going to sit. And I'm sure it irked the Saints, and that's why they were open to trading him. And this isn't the first time or the second time we've heard big name players at least be on the trading block. And we've seen it happen before where Jimmy Graham and Brandon Cooks were both traded. So when you see those things, you actually have to take it serious as opposed to just assuming it's posturing. So, but look, it seems like they've been able to calm down on each side, and Kamara's back practicing. And that to me shows that there's signs that a deal is going to get done. Now, let's also just because the Saints were open to trading him, it doesn't mean that they don't want him. I mean, there's a deal on the table, and they want him. And the deal is, at least it was when Alvin started sitting out, it was the Derrick Henry deal, 4 years, 50 max out of $50 million, and so they were looking for more, and it looked like the Saints weren't able to budge. And so I'm curious how much they budge. But look, it's not like the Saints don't want him long term. They do. So don't get confused by just because they were open to trading him. Maybe a little posturing, but maybe they got a one with Cooks. They got a one with Jimmy Graham. If someone would do it, they'd probably consider it. But in Kamara's final year of his deal, but look, I think cooler heads are going to prevail, and that a long-term deal is going to happen.
Well, I would agree with you. As I wrote today, I would say you never say never, but I believe a deal will get done because it's a perfect fit. In this offense, I'm not telling you he couldn't go somewhere else and be as effective and be used as effectively, but he's not going to go anywhere else where he's going to be used any better than he's been used here and anywhere else where he'd be a better fit. So I think those are the things you have to really take into consideration, and I think he understands that. Look, with Mark Ingram, they lost him over a small amount of money, and maybe there was a miscalculation on the agent's part, but he ended up in a great place with a Super Bowl contender in the Ravens. That's obviously not necessarily always going to be the case. You could end up somewhere where you really don't want to be if you don't come to terms and a trade takes place. So I think it will end up happening because of the fit, and yet you and I both know there's been a devaluation in running backs in the NFL. I mean, the only guy picked in the first round this year was the last pick in the round, and that was Catholic and LSU's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So, by and large, the league has taken an approach to running backs that they can be replaced. And Leonard Fournette's the latest example of that. Leonard Fournette had a really good season last year playing with a bad team, with no quarterback play, with no receivers. Their best receiver was DJ Chark, with all due respect. And with a mediocre offensive line, he still ran for 1,152 yards and caught, 75, 76 balls. And he's released. And they tried to find a trade partner. They can't find anybody, and he clears waivers. That should tell you something about running backs and the way they're looked at.
Well, let's not accuse Jacksonville of not basically getting rid of everyone that was a good player. I mean, they've been doing this for a while. There's definitely interest in Leonard Fournette. I just think that they weren't going to use a waiver claim and pay him what he would have been making in Jacksonville. But look, your example with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that is an example of a Kamara-style back. I feel like that's going to come in the NFL. And that's more valuable to me than someone like a Derrick Henry or like a Leonard Fournette, where a lot of it is, north-south running. Even though Leonard caught a bunch of passes last year, that's probably not the way he's viewed by a lot of NFL teams. And so, I also make the argument, people, you hear fans, let's get rid of Alvin Kamara, trade him. We'll find another one. Well, the last time they had someone like Alvin Kamara was Darren Sproles, and they let Darren Sproles, they traded him, assuming they could just find a guy. and they didn't for 4 years, and it hindered the offense. They missed that piece of the puzzle for 4 years. They tried C.J. Spiller. They tried Travaris Cadet. That wasn't going to cut it. And until they got Kamara, they did not have that piece. And look, the offense took an uptick and a more diverse look. And so I think that, look, that's why the Saints value him. Like I said,
right.
They want him there. They know he's a piece. Kamara knows his best years would be with the Saints because they know exactly how to use them. And so and I'm with you. But look, you're right, though. I mean, that's the fear, though, with people because, look, David Johnson got $13 million a year, and he hasn't lived up to it. And a lot of the running backs who've gotten it, Todd Gurley has faltered. But, Alvin Kamara, to me, I feel like is a different doesn't have the major injury problems that some of these guys I just mentioned have. And, I feel like the Saints use him perfectly. And I think Alvin knows where his best fit is in New Orleans, and they are willing to pay him. So something's going to happen on a positive note between those two sides.
I think it will, too. A lot of locals clamoring for Fournette, and you've got Ty Montgomery who can fill some of that role, and I understand that because Ingram, certainly Fournette could be Ingram, in that similar role. But at the same time, Montgomery's not going to be Kamara no matter how good he's looked at camp. Let's face it. He wouldn't be here otherwise, and he wouldn't be with another team if that was the case.
Ty Montgomery is an insurance policy for Alvin Kamara, and right. that's what he is. They didn't have one last year. And so remember the 2 games that Kamara missed, they had to go north-south running with Latavius Murray. I don't know if they would have wanted to really do that the rest of the way, like say if Kamara missed the whole season. And like once Kamara came back, they reverted back to the system that they typically run. But, yeah, look, I think that you're not trading Kamara and thinking, oh, boy, Ty Montgomery's going to be that guy. No, you'd be taking a hit there. I mean, so like I just think that, as you know well, and I know well that tempers can get hot over there. And sometimes you get a little irrational and at least it seems like it's calmed down.
Yep. So it looks like Andrus Peat will be ready to play since he's practicing, so he'll be a left guard. And you got to believe it's going to be McCoy at center and Ruiz at right guard, correct?
That's what I'm assuming, yes. And they were rotating for a little bit, and McCoy has practiced the whole time. Ruiz got nicked up a little bit, has missed a little bit of time. I think, you add and limited practice time. I think you add it all up, and McCoy is going to be there. And at least we're not arguing, all right, someone's not good enough to start. I mean, the fact that both are certainly going to be good enough to start, and the Saints will be in better shape because Larry Warford was certainly a declining player last year. I think Ruiz can come in and be better right away. And so that's a good thing. And look, I'll tell you what, Andrus Peat, definitely, it's noticeably how he has dropped some weight. And I think he had to. And so, I mean, you need him to be able to move. And so I think he's going to be able to do that a little bit more this year. And so, I do think that their offensive line is, even though you have some questions here or there, but I think that offensive line is going to be in really good shape.
Good depth at tight end, and yet, who would have thought that we'd be talking about the place where they have the most depth being the secondary, because that's truly the case. I mean, they've got real quality depth in the secondary. They got a whole bunch of guys that can play in the NFL and play pretty well.
And they're interchangeable. You could put P.J. Williams at safety or at nickel. You could put C.J. Gardner-Johnson at safety or at nickel. So that's a good problem to have. And look, even a veteran guy like DJ Swearinger, he's someone who can come in and play right away if you need to. And if he's your 10th guy, he might be your 8th guy because J.T. Gray and Justin Hardy would be 9, 10, but they're locked
special
in
teams guys. Sure. Right.
Yeah. And so if he's your backup, and look, you're in really good shape. And like just last offseason, Patrick Robinson, you did not hear a lot of good things from him in training camp, but that hasn't been the case this year. He's had a good camp, and so that's encouraging. But if there's an injury to Lattimore or Janoris Jenkins, I understand why people would be nervous. All right, who can play on the outside? Heck, they might put C.J. Gardner-Johnson out there and say, all right, P-Rob or P.J. Williams play nickel. And so, but, every team, if their starting corner goes down, they're probably going to be in a little bit of trouble. But I do feel like that the Saints, they've got viable pieces. If someone were to go down, they wouldn't be in a heap of trouble. You'd miss them, but you wouldn't be in a glaring heap. And let's just think about it last year. We're talking about, leaning on Eli Apple to be the starter or Ken Crawley, remember,
right.
at times. So they're in a much better position this year than they have been in plenty of years, really.
Final thought, Larry, is there any one position or one area that you would be concerned about as we sit right now 11 days before the season starts?
Concern might be strong, but, I'm curious just to see where they are at linebacker. Alex Anzalone's looked good. He's healthy. If that's the case, you're in good shape. And so with that, where do you go from there? I don't know how much you're going to expect from Zach Vaughn. He's been banged up. And so, Caden Ellis would probably play ahead of him. And so just a little bit there. I do feel like they've got some quality guys there. So that's good. But, if you look, maybe just there. I mean, wide receiver, I think they're in really good shape. Tight end, you're definitely 3 deep. I think, you got an insurance policy for Kamara if something were to happen. They've done a real good job of filling the holes that they needed. And so, if we're really having a nitpick, and I'm having to go, man, how about that 7th and 8th offensive line spot? I mean, if that's where we are,
right.
Ken, I think we're primed to see a really, really good football team.
Yep, yeah, no question about it. And what goes along with that are the high expectations after the massively disappointing endings to the last 3 seasons. So it's Super Bowl or bust. It has to be looked at that way, and I think most people do view it that way. You can follow him on Twitter at Larry Holder and subscribe to The Athletic, where they do great work on a day-to-day basis, including the work that Larry does. Larry, once again, appreciate the time. Keep up the good work. We'll talk again soon.
You got it, Ken. Always good talking to you, my friend.
Okay. Larry Holder.